a lot of these EdTech companies, their entire premise was that online is the way to go, online is the future. But now that they're pulling back, now that they're coming and starting their own physical centers, does that mean that their premise has been proven wrong? Or does it mean that this is just part of their growth strategy?
It's a model, it's a part of growth strategy where you want to capture both the markets, which is both physical as well as online. I don't think it's so much as of now that the online has been proven wrong or physical has been proven right. I think as at this stage, not only in EdTech, across all sectors, I think it's a matter of having an omni-channel presence, as they call it.
At MU, we think a lot about the future of education, how things in the future might look very different for universities, for edtechs, for schools. So today, to discuss this more deeply, we have with us Aditya Malik. He was the CEO and MD of Talentedge, a company he recently sold to Upgrad. Before that, he was the SVP of Human Resources at Bank of America, and before that at GE. So I think it's going to make for a very interesting conversation. We'll cover lots of different topics around edtech, education, future of education. So please stay tuned in for a very exciting conversation. So we have lots of things to cover today. Obviously we have an edtech expert with us, so I'm going to take full advantage of that. But I wanted to start with one thing, right, which is something that everybody's talking about. That for whatever reason, Indian graduates are not employable. Right? To what extent do you believe that's true? What is your view on the problem? Is there a possible solution at all on the horizon? Is the problem with primary education, higher education, secondary education, where is it lacking? Let's start our conversation there, and I'm sure it will sort of find its way from there.
So I think I'll personally feel that the issue has multi dimensions. The problem not necessarily is of education. While education is definitely a problem, and there can be multiple problems in education in terms of whether primary, secondary, whatever, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But it's also about the dignity of a job and the way you define it. I was reading an article in Times of India or ET, I think today morning or last night itself, where they have spoken about, one politician commenting about, you can make more money by selling pakoras or something of that sort. So the question which was asked in that article is selling pakoras or selling momos. I think it's in Economic Times today morning. I was reading it. It's is selling momos a job which is not worth its while? While the guy who's selling momos, and it said that if it's costing 100 rupees and the guy is getting 50 customers in the evening, you're talking about 5,000 customers, and if even if the cost is 50%, you're making 2,500 rupees a day. Over 30 days, you're still talking about 75,000 rupees.
It's not bad at all.
It's not bad at all. But why are we, even senior leaders, economists, even हम लोग भी कई बार अपने बच्चों को बोलते हैं यार हलवाई की दुकान खोल लेगा जाके, कुछ ऐसा कर लेगा. I mean, or so the question is that, are we giving the dignity of a job which it deserves? So when we make a statement that our engineers are not employable, what lens are we looking at from?
What is
are
the definition of
they not employable
employability?
in a Infosys or a TCS or a Wipro or anywhere else? Or are they employable in doing something else, which is where the jobs are available? Or are they doing something else? So I think, long story short, I think the first point we need to consider is कि आप किस lens से देख रहे हो? What is the lens? What do you define? How do you define employability? What is the benchmark? That's all outside the education ecosystem. But I think what education can play a role there is to give the respect to all the roles. What has happened in last few years, suddenly getting a job in a startup or even doing a startup has suddenly started becoming respectful.
Correct.
5 years back, in a campus placement, if you would have got a job in a startup 5, 7, 8 years back, you would have thought कि यार इसको यहाँ नौकरी नहीं मिली इसलिए startup में चला गया. Today people reject offers from top companies, and startups get a day zero this thing is because people want to do that kind of a job. So this environment has been created, this perception has been created. So how can education create that perception that running a tea stall or running a hotel or running a snack shop is a equally good employment opportunity than working with a big tech biggie or a BPO or a FMCG. So that's the other point. And third, from a quality of education perspective, I think where we are coming now with the NEP and where it is getting more and more mixed with the industry, I think it's a step in the right direction. It's an evolution. I think we'll get there. There can be many complaints about academia gap, etc. People are not getting job because of all that stuff. But that's true everywhere. It's
Right.
not in India
that's
alone.
even in the US, even at
Yeah,
Harvard.
even
Wharton,
in Harvard. So I
yeah.
think in US, if you look at that, the fireman job is considered up. छोटे बच्चे से पूछते हैं, so fireman is up there in the
it's very highly regarded.
highly regarded job. What about India?
I don't think so.
And that's where I think we have to start from an employability perspective, while we have to address the
To
education
change the
system,
lens.
change the lens, and give the dignity of the job it deserves.
That's fair. I think I agree with that. But let's talk about a more fundamental problem. The gross enrollment ratio in India is, I think, below 30% even today.
Correct.
Right? And it hasn't changed much in the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
I think 15 years ago, it was maybe at 20%. Whereas in China, in other developing countries, it's moving a lot faster. So basically, our students are graduating high school and not joining
Colleges. Correct.
Right? What is the problem there from your perspective? Is there a solution again?
Two-pronged problem. One, I think it's having quality colleges itself. While we have many institutions, but I don't know how many are quality institutions where student will aspire to get a admission to. And even if you get an admission in non-quality thing, you want to get a degree and stamp, and you join the ranks of people of where you're not getting employment. I think that's the first part of it. And I think second part of it, from our perspective, I think there is no end in sight for the students that, why should I take admission in college? What is going to give it to me from that kind of a stuff?
Right.
So goes back to the same point. How do you structure it in such a way that the student feels that if I go to college, I'm going to get a ROI. I'm going to get something which is going to give me a better standard of living. I'm going to get something which is affordable, yet I will get my ROI is going to be much better. I think we are getting there. Personally, I feel with NEP and with all this stuff around online education happening and allowing good universities to offer online courses. I was reading the other day, IIT Madras has launched a free maths course, even BScs, etc. How many kids otherwise would have got admission in IIT Madras?
No, but do you think online education gives the same level of quality as offline education? I mean, that's a more fundamental question. But does online education solve the problem of employability or the problem of not enough students joining college?
So this is a very trick question. मैं अपने profession से दगा करूँगा. So, but on a serious note, I think to me the best model is blended. Pure online or pure physical is not the physical. Obviously, is if you are able to get, but obviously there's a limitation of scale. You can't have physical good institutes everywhere. Like you run in Masters Union today. I mean, you can't have Masters Union in every city. I mean, the amount of capital, amount of effort, amount of good faculty it will take is huge to that extent, and that's limitation.
But a lot of capital
scale
is being spent by EdTech companies as well.
True, I agree. But still, the fact is that Amazon or a Flipkart today can do much more grocery sale than a neighborhood store. At least that's the belief. So my point is that can we do a blended system where the best of both the worlds can happen? The academic portion can get covered using online, and the exposure and experience portion of education can get covered in the physical center. So that's, to me, that's the best way to go. So what you are saying, I think online and physical both blended is the way to go.
Got it. Have you seen any good blended models around you?
Not yet.
So that's a wide ocean.
Not yet, because I think so far we all are chasing the growth mirage, and everybody feels online is fast, and now there is a wave of online companies getting into physical education. Everybody's opening centers and all that stuff, because you've promised your investors growth numbers, and suddenly
So we are allowed to speak that?
Yeah,
Okay.
so we are trying to cover all that stuff. Everybody's trying to get into that kind of stuff. But I think ultimately it'll all settle down as the market matures, and the model will evolve somewhere which is going to be the ideal mix of online and physical. It'll vary from course to course. While certain courses you can do pure online, certain courses you can do pure physical, and somewhere you'll do the blend. And I think that's the future.
Got it. So full online completely. I mean, we have seen that irrespective of whether the outcomes are good or bad, at least the marketing is too expensive for those companies to be sustainable.
100%.
That
especially if you're chasing scale. Especially if you're chasing scale.
So that we have established that full online as a business is not going to be sustainable beyond a certain scale.
Well, I would say, I would not use the word established. And I'll tell you why. Because if those companies are still able to raise money at a higher valuation, which means some investor definitely thinks that it can get done.
Right.
So
Which is still
the
happening.
jury is still out.
Which is
Jury is
still
still out.
happening, yeah.
Jury is still out whether that can happen or not. I can have my own view. You can have your own view. But I think some investor who's putting in money
Somebody's
at
positive
billions
about
of dollars of valuation, they feel that those guys can still turn profitable by doing online education. Time will tell. Honestly, time will tell.
Fair
I don't know on that as of now.
No, fair. But
But from a quality of education perspective, I think blended is the way to go.
blended is, I mean,
Yeah.
quality and scalability together.
Quality and scalability.
Blended. I
Blended
mean,
is the way to
for if it was possible, then physical is best, right?
Absolutely.
Obviously.
Absolutely.
So obviously, given the chance, we'd want that everything should be offline. But because of scalability, we think that blended is a good compromise, essentially. Got it. So explain me this one thing, which is that a lot of these EdTech companies, their entire premise was that online is the way to go. Online is the future. They probably raised their initial rounds on this premise that, online is scalability, higher gross margin, higher returns, higher scalability. But now that they're pulling back, now that they're coming and starting their own physical centers, does that mean that their premise has been proven wrong? Or does it mean that this is just part of their growth strategy?
I think it's part of the growth strategy. I mean, it's happening all across. I mean, you can see online grocery folks opening physical. Amazon has opened physical stores in US. There are large format stores opened by Amazon in US in terms of where you get the fresh vegetables or this thing there, and large format stores, right? So I think it's a model. It's a part of growth strategy where you want to capture both the markets, which is both physical as well as online. I don't think it's so much as of now that the online has been proven wrong or physical has been proven right. I think as at this stage, not only in EdTech, across all sectors, I think it's a matter of having omni-channel presence, as they call it. Like Nykaa is setting up stores, etc. Many of these online only companies are going physical. So I think it's a matter of omni-channel as of now.
And so what about this EdTech winter that everyone's talking about, right? That the funding has dried up. The confidence that the EdTechs inspired during COVID is not sustaining. I mean, while there are still some very successful fundraisers that I think that happened last week with Physics Wala, etc. But the larger perception is going down. Why? I mean, in the post-COVID world, have the EdTechs not been able to keep the confidence up?
I don't think it's only with EdTech alone. So what's happening is, for example, the funding winter is being talked about across all the sectors.
Correct.
Right? So it's not so much EdTech. So what is happening is that suddenly people started looking at EdTech from a lens of what was happening during COVID days. There was lockdown, people working from home, kids working, schools were online. So everybody was trying to do classes online. People were doing free courses online, etc. So suddenly the benchmark became the Netflix. There was an article about Netflix, the subscriptions going down and all, because suddenly the benchmark metrics of Netflix views was the COVID work from home model, where you were looking at people subscribing Netflix because they were sitting idle and they have no time to socialize. The moment the time opened up, cinema halls started opening up, people wanted to go out, subscription came down.
Right.
Zoom, again a classic case. So I don't think it's a case of EdTech alone. I think it's a question of the benchmark, pre-COVID, post-COVID, during COVID kind of a benchmark. I think people are looking from that lens, and suddenly you are realizing that that was a special cause and not a normal scenario. And I think the dust will settle down. I mean, all
also
these things.
the fact that the interest rates in the US are higher.
Correct.
I mean, that's a larger
Absolutely.
problem.
That's a larger, with this war going on and all that stuff, that's a larger problem. So I don't think it's a EdTech so-called funding winter. I think it's across, because people, I mean, I remember having an argument with a senior investor where they said that, I was signing up office for my company, and they said, you're doing a mistake. I was getting a good deal, so I signed up in the middle of COVID because I was getting a good deal, and we were anyway working from office. And they said that, why are you doing this? Nobody's going to come to work or work. So I told them at that time, I said, you will see that people will be back, and companies will insist people start work from office, and this work from home will not last. The remark I got was, you're wrong. These things have changed forever for good. Now, if you see, even large IT companies, everybody is insisting that people come back.
Come back, yeah.
So I think it's a way people look at things. COVID was a once in a lifetime kind of phenomenon. At least all of us hope that way. I think it's a matter of time where the normalcy returns, and people will see. And these funding cycles and all, they come. 2 years back, things happen again. It's a change. I think it's a matter of time where things will settle down.
So two directions I want to take the conversation in. One is about general entrepreneurship, right? I mean, given the funding winter, is it the right time, first of all, for people to start companies? Like, if I'm thinking about starting a company, should I do it now? Or should I wait another year till the time the market sort of comes back to normal?
My personal view, there's no right or wrong time. I still feel raising money at a seed level is still available. The money is still available in the market. If you have the right idea, right problem you are solving, right focus you're doing, there's still money available to fund the seed level startups. Whatever the challenge you are facing, or what you read about in economic times or a financial media, is Series B, Series C kind of things, where you are suddenly, people are looking at profitability, looking at the other metrics which was not being looked upon earlier for whatever right or wrong reason.
Right.
But startups, I think, from an Indian perspective, from an Indian economy perspective, from what's happening in the world perspective, with so much happening on Web 3.0, Metaverse, all that stuff, what you hear, I think it's the best time. I personally feel it's the best time.
But do you think, I think there was a startup that was trying to run classes in the Metaverse.
Yeah.
And I think it had like good founders, had like good funding as well.
Yeah.
Would you ever want to learn in the Metaverse?
I wouldn't mind.
You wouldn't mind?
I wouldn't mind. At least I would like to experience. Few years back, people wouldn't have wanted to learn online also, right? So people, the online educations, big universities started, big things started happening, multiple ways. Would like to experience it definitely.
So you have run a online education startup company, right? For almost a decade.
Yeah, 9 years.
9 years, right?
Yeah.
So, and you've also obviously studied in a physical institution yourself.
Yeah.
Do you think that, online education is a true innovation? So let me explain to you what I mean. Back in the day, in 1100s, or even before that, let's say before Christ, we had Nalanda, we had Gurukuls, right?
Yeah.
And there we had a teacher who was standing in front, teaching to students sitting in front of the teacher, right? And in 5,000 years, nothing has changed. Even today, we have a teacher who stands in the front and teaches. Students listen to the teacher. In online, if anything, I feel like we have gone backwards, where still we have someone speaking and students taking notes. And this time we don't even know if the student is, truly quote unquote present or engaged, right? So and excuse me for saying this, but I almost feel that online education is a step backwards, not a step forward in terms of true innovation in education. Does online education make education more accessible? Sure. But does it improve the quality? Probably not. What's your view on this?
I think jury is still out. I'll tell you, for example, we deal with working professionals. I think for them it's been a boon. Because for somebody to continuously be part of a lifelong learning kind of an environment and do a course, upskill themselves day to day, and do their 10 to 7, 10 to 8, 10 to 9 kind of a job, not happening physically. Not happening physically. In spite of best intentions, Not because the logistics nightmare of going to a center, attending it and all is not going to be that easy. So for them, for a marketing guy to learn digital marketing, for a digital marketing guy to learn branding, for a techie to learn analytics, etc., this has been a huge boon. I think to that extent, from my personal experience, since we deal with working professionals, I think it's well regarded, well accepted, and for example, when we do our quality surveys of the satisfaction of students and the impact it has have on their career, so we ask them a couple of questions. One of the questions we ask them is that after completing this course, has it helped you do your job better? Does it make you more empowered than your peers? It's a hard straight questions.
Yeah.
There's no
Objective questions.
There's no 10-point scale, rate 1, 2, 5. It's yes or no.
Yeah.
Period.
Black
That's
and
it.
white,
As simple as that. So we are seeing a trend where you are doing domain-specific courses. Digital marketing, product management, project management, HR, analytics, finance. You're getting high scores. We are doing journal management courses. You're getting low scores. And it baffled us initially. Then we went back to those students, asked them the questions, went back and did a round, kind of round tables, understood why this was. And then you realize that in a journal management course, you are learning a bit of management, bit of strategy, bit of this, bit of that, and it's not
huge breadth.
But somebody, a marketing guy coming and learning digital marketing, a finance guy coming and learning corporate finance, HR guy doing HR analytics, they are clearly doing with the intent of making their jobs, enriching their jobs, doing well in their career, and that's paying them off. So to your question, I think online education, my personal experience from that segment of working population, 3 years to 15 years, which we cater to, has been very, very positively received. Very, very positively.
So what I'm hearing is that when it comes to skills enhancement, online education is great. It's on demand, it's flexible,
Absolutely.
It's easy. But when it comes to education, and let's differentiate between education and skilling, then the jury is still out, perhaps.
I would question you on that, and I'll tell you why. Because on one side we say education has to marry with industry, right? So
right.
Today, when you're doing an MBA, we are talking of MBA in digital marketing, MBA in project management, MBA in product management. I mean, those specializations are coming in, right?
Correct.
So we are trying to marry formal education with the skills, right? Government wants that. NEP is advocating that.
True.
You yourself are running a great program around that. So I think that's where they kind of intersect. And to me, that's the way the future will happen. So then tomorrow, if I want to do an MBA in digital marketing or MBA in product management or a bachelor's in analytics, why not?
Sure. No, but what about the learning that happens outside the classroom? So when you're in a physical campus, the way you sort of interact with your peers, the way you network with them, the way you sort of do projects outside the classroom, what you learn, living with some other people, having deadlines, doing those mischievous things. All of those things are part of the learning that online education will not be able to encompass, right?
I'll give you one small example. So in my previous job, we used to have this thing and say education, experience and exposure. I'm talking of GE. So when I was there, they used to call 3Es for top performers. They used to say education, experience and exposure. Education was through training, that you train people, train managers to be better managers, etc. Exposure is by giving them exposure to senior leaders, what you're talking about, and like, for example, I was part of leadership program and we were regularly sent for talks by, I went and met Jack Welch, went and met, his leadership team in those days, young 5-year-old experienced manager. So it's, you are in awe of Jack Welch sitting in front of him with a group of 20 people, not a full hall. It's a different experience. It's surreal, right? So similarly, an experience, those famous Crotonville GE programs where they used to rotate people every 6 months to new roles. I was part of one. And in 18 months, 3 roles. One company to another company, other role, running a call center to Six Sigma to operations. They move people. And that's where I think what you're making a point, that while education can be delivered online, experience and exposure comes with a with the
Physical proximity.
Physical proximity.
Hmm.
I was speaking to an entrepreneur who's running who has started an online school for K-12.
Okay.
For K-8, actually not K-12, K-8. Because 9, 10, 11, 12 is different. So I was asking him his vision, why you want to
So
do it.
not supplementary learning, primary learning.
Primary learning,
Okay.
K-8. And what a very decent number of students in the first year. And this is post-COVID, not pre-COVID. Post-COVID, right?
So this is the main school. So
Main
students
school.
are not going to
Not
like
going
an
to
actual
the
school.
school, yeah.
It's not like Byju's, which you
it's
do in
not
the evening.
Byju's, yeah. So then what happens is, then people were talking of the fact that how do you give exposure to the kids? The question you were raising, that, you know, today my kids go to a school, they play, they meet their friends, they play sports, they do all that stuff. How do you give the same exposure in an online school where the bacha is sitting in front of a laptop and listening to a teacher? Obviously, he has something in mind of tying up with sports academies across the country, tying up with dance academies across the country. You have those days where people go and all and do. So, is that the optimum solution? I don't know. But are there solutions available in the market where you are mix and match and marry the two? Answer is yes. So going back to your original point, I think the point I made initially and we were discussing, somewhere these two will blend. New innovative solutions will emerge. Neither a pure physical will stay, nor a pure online will stay. I mean, come to think of it, Khan Academy came much before many EdTech companies came.
Oh yeah, of course.
And the quality of videos of Khan Academy
Just as good, if not better.
Just get not better, right? And people learned a lot out of that.
So how do you think about education in the future, right? Let's say we are 100 years in the future, we are in 21, 22, right? How do you think we will be learning?
आप मुझसे दिल की इच्छा पूछो, तो I would like to go back to the Nalanda days. You know, the purest Gurukul form of education, right? I think there was some merit in that. And as a nation, we were much richer and richer not monetarily, but from education perspective, knowledge perspective, you know, all the modern sciences, everything. They must be doing something right for us to have that history and the knowledge piece of it. Having said that, the other way of looking at why couldn't we sustain for whatever reason we couldn't sustain, which means something was wrong in that model also, or maybe something was wrong and there may be many other environment or whatever that. So, but if you ask me personally, I'm still very intrigued with that model, and if we can find a way of figuring that out and cracking the code and doing the scale.
But the Gurukul was only available to the king's sons only. In fact, not even daughters.
True.
Right.
True. Yeah.
So definitely it wasn't scalable.
Not scalable. Yeah.
So,
but you know, today there are models like I was reading something about Ekal Vidyalayas. I don't know whether you've heard about them or not. So Ekal Vidyalaya is a concept where Ekal means single. So one teacher goes to small villages, वहाँ पेड़ के नीचे या buildings में, gets the students and teaches.
Interesting.
That's the largest, in a way, one of the largest school networks in India.
Interesting.
So it's a very, a different way of learning where you are getting the teacher to go do this. And primary education, obviously, it's not for the college or something of that sort. But I guess.
But it can be. I mean,
it can be.
So I mean, the government has these platforms, right? Swayam, etc., where they teach, where they have content essentially. But again, that's just video content. It's not too different. But what you're talking about, Ekal, is a more active approach. Right?
And jaldi hai na, it's too early. I mean, these things take a lifetime to change. I mean, they don't change overnight, right? I mean, but when they change, digital payments penetration, nobody would have imagined digital payment penetration. That happened so quickly, right? And that doesn't mean cash has gone from the economy.
But then why hasn't education seen its moment under the sun yet? I mean, education has not changed in, as I said, 5,000 years, right? So why are we giving education this benefit of the doubt and giving the time? It should have changed by now.
I don't think people have looked at education as a government, as entrepreneurs. I don't think we have tried to solve that problem. We are all skimming the cream. We are all trying to still get this thing. The moment we realize, you were talking of funding winter, you were talking about metrics, growth, competition. Ab aaya na time. Now people will look for those models
That are actually
Because
sustainable.
when things are going good,
Hmm.
why will you change the model?
Hmm.
Suddenly when you realize that your penetration, you've already skimmed the cream, जो penetration होनी थी वो हो गई है, अब next scale पे जाना है.
Hmm.
How do you go to the next scale? Mass is there.
Hmm.
कैसे जाओगे? Option नहीं है ना.
Hmm. Hmm.
Then entrepreneurs will come into the sector. They will look for innovative solutions. They will find a way of setting up a, online education which works equally well for a, XYZ gentleman,
Or
boy or a
offline.
girl,
Or offline.
or a physical center, which works in a swanky corporate building and also works in a
Village, yeah.
small village. Those models will evolve.
Hmm.
I think it's a matter of time. I personally feel because जो skimming of the cream होना था वो हो गया.
Correct.
और हो जाए, अभी नहीं हुआ तो और 6 महीने में या 1 साल में और 2 साल में हो जाएगा.
हाँ, the froth will go.
उसके बाद then many of these people will be forced to go to solve the real world problem. And then people like, and the reason why I feel, as India, we are the best equipped. We have the tech, we have the intelligence, we have the ability to experiment, and above all, we have the capital to experiment as a nation.
And the opportunity. I mean,
And the
we have the
opportunity.
need, first of all.
Need. Not many developing nations today have all these things. किसी के पास capital है तो tech नहीं है, tech नहीं है, tech, capital है, tech नहीं है, tech है तो capital नहीं है. We have everything going for us.
So in 100 years, essentially, what you're suggesting is that perhaps that old Gurukul model will actually come back in the form of a mature Ekal Vidyalaya system.
Scalable.
A scalable, mature Ekal
inclusive.
Vidyalaya.
Inclusive.
And perhaps even one that might extend to higher education.
Has to.
Right.
Has
So we are actually going away from online. There might be some technology behind it.
Has
sort
to be
of-
blended. Has
yeah,
to be blended. See,
Yeah.
I feel tech is going to be there in some form or the other because tech enables scalability.
Fair.
Tech enables scalability.
But the last mile, the final lesson that is being learned by the student is happening in proximity with that teacher, right? In the concept of that Ekal Vidyalaya system.
Again,
But you're saying
I
not
don't know.
necessary.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
not
know.
necessary.
I
Fair.
don't know.
I mean,
don't
maybe
know.
we have robots by then
we,
who are able to do
don't
that.
know who's able to do that today. I mean, look at, I studied a technology which was hologram technology. And I got intrigued by it when I saw the politicians using it during elections.
Yeah. Very effectively so.
Very effectively so. So I connected with a firm which I read a case study in the newspaper, reached out to the CEO of that firm, met him, understood how it works. Now, what stops us from, in a classroom like this, beaming a class to a village? And again, with this thing, and you get the same experience as we are getting in your classroom here.
I'm going to touch on a very sensitive matter, right? Which is, I strongly feel that our institutions, our education institutions, have done some things well, right? But they've also not forced themselves to think about how they can improve their education system. They've been doing the same thing that they were doing 100 years ago, right? They were still, prescribing books the same way. There's still a library. The classroom system is still the same. There's been no innovation, right? And my parents are both educationists as well. So I say this with a lot of caution, that have our academicians essentially failed us in not innovating education enough?
I would ask you a little differently, since you come from a strong educationist background kind of a stuff. I think one of the sectors which saw least reforms, except leave the digital banking side of it, digital payment side of it, right, as of now. Even digital banking in India is way ahead in digital banking than many developed nations as of now. Because banking was always considered traditional, risk-averse kind of a business. It was up there on the pedestal. Banker original photos. I remember when I joined banking, first day I was told, I joined a foreign bank. First day I was told, wear a tie, formal tie, come in, that kind of a stuff. And if I used to remove the tie, keep it in my pocket, and then my boss used to come and say, please wear a tie. So it was considered the image of a banker was a traditional stiff upper lip kind of a banker, because you're dealing with people's money. And that reason was not bad. It was that you're dealing with people's money.
High stakes.
People have to be comfortable that the guy who's dealing with my money is serious enough not to
burn it.
kind of burn my money. Go back to the education. Parents have to be serious enough and say, parents today, our parents, always demanded that there's a certain image of a faculty, there is a certain image of a university, there is a certain image of an educational institution, there's a certain image of a online education company. हमें ये चाहिए university से, हमें ये चाहिए, there's certain stereotypes which are running there, right?
Correct.
To me, that was the reason why the sectors have not, I don't blame academicians for it. To me, it's a question of the user not demanding the change. How many parents will take the risk of not sending their kids, even today also, for an undergrad course and say, I will send them for a course which will make them more employable. Degree होगी नहीं होगी कोई बात नहीं.
No one would agree.
आज की rate में भी, where you see so many options available, everything to that extent, nobody will do that.
So it's actually the user is not asking
User
for it.
is not ready.
So now let's talk about video games. I have a lot of nephews and nieces at home, right? And literally, I mean, I think they're spending half their, awake days playing games, right? And those games are addicting as hell, right? And even if I sort of start looking at them playing the games, I also get interested in whether you can complete the level or not, right? It's extremely exciting. Have you considered in your time in EdTech, during your time in EdTech, to see how you can marry gaming with education? Is that something that Talentedge or Upgrad thinks about?
So, when for me, the eye-opener was I went to China, and in the subway or the metro, I rode that almost every day. And I could see people, literally, almost every other person had a phone in the hand with obviously an earplug and playing game. And their hands were moving like kind of stuff. And it was like, and I was like, will this guy even know his station has come? And how will they get off and all? Almost everybody. I have traveled to West, I've traveled to US, Southeast Asia, Europe, everywhere. I have not seen that level of gaming addiction, which I saw in that country about 3 years back, not long ago, 3 years back. Which means, and in India, we are seeing that already now. I mean, not to that extent what I saw in China. I still see people, in metro, not everybody is playing game, unlike in China. But I personally feel, I think that time has come. Lot many people have tried gaming. We haven't. Lot many people have tried gaming. I genuinely don't know how many people actually understand how to marry gaming with the successful pedagogy for education. Cliche hai, naam ke liye, gamified learning and all that stuff. But to whatever extent I have seen, I haven't seen a really good example. I mean, there are some decent examples, really good examples, which can make learning gamified. As of now, it's all very rudimentary, which has evolved over a period of time. But I don't think the kind of science which goes in developing a game, it's a very complex science which goes in developing a game.
Absolutely. I mean, it takes
I
a long
haven't
time to build a
seen
game.
that kind of a effort being done to marry the content, marry the game. I don't think it has gone ever. It hasn't happened.
I feel like the oldest game in education was the game of scores and ranking.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think gaming scores come from academic scores, right? As a concept. And ranking, I mean, I remember when I was in school, I was in a Christian school, St. Joseph's school, right? And there, your rank in your class meant everything to you.
Yeah. That's your recognition, or that's your role, that's kind of kya rank hai type.
Yeah, matlab दूसरे को हराना है, that is more important, right? And that is gamification in education at the fundamental level.
Fundamental level, yeah.
Now, what more can we do? So I saw this one thing which I thought was interesting. So in this university, one of the most boring courses in mechanical engineering is thermodynamics, right? And the way they teach is they said, hey, listen, we're not going to do these thermodynamic equations and these numericals, forget about them. We're going to tell students that in groups of 5, you run, you build a go-kart and you race it at the end of the term. And whoever races it the fastest, whoever wins the race, gets the highest grade, whatever. Now, I mean, the point was that if you can build a race car yourself, you understand thermodynamics.
Thermodynamics, correct.
Because in the process of building that car or that engine, you would have actually had to apply all of those equations. And to me, that was quite interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think that other courses beyond thermodynamics, I mean, let's say MBA or BCom, etc., the teachers eventually will start thinking along these lines where they'll say, okay, how can I make this class interesting? How can I optimize for the learning outcome and not for the grades?
And not only that, if I may just add to one more wish list to what you just said, the learning outcomes, and how can I make it kind of universal, which a kid in the village can relate to and a kid in Delhi or a Bombay can relate to. Which is very tough in gaming, by the way.
Yeah.
What's happening today with all these cricket gaming or sports gaming companies, why they are so successful, my theory might be wrong, is because a small town guy or a young worker who started working versus a senior guy working, they all relate to that game, be it soccer, be it cricket, be it whatever, to that extent. That's a classic example of having it ready for all across this thing. To wish list to what you just added, can I get a game married to the pedagogy of education in such a way that is universal? Very tough. To your question, will it be done? I feel answer is yes. I don't think gamers understand education, and I don't think educationists understand gaming enough for us to get there. But again, this is one of those things which if somebody cracks it, it's a model worth investing in.
And the other thing also is that, I was watching The Crown. I don't know if you've seen The Crown on Netflix, right? It's basically like this full series about the Queen and how the Queen's office has evolved over time, all of that, right? I think I learned more about British history by binging that show than all my classes in the past that I've done on world history or whatever.
I think these things definitely have merit, but again goes back to the question which I was asking, which you were debating earlier. You can watch Netflix. How do you get the kid in the village to watch The Crown to get him to understand the British history? That's where I feel as a nation we have a better chance of getting there.
Got it. So that problem we can solve better because we have the need.
We have everything what it takes. Everything. Tech, talent, capital, understanding of the problem. And the sector is maturing fast. I mean, EdTech in India is one of the highest funded sectors, right? Among all the globally, right? So ultimately, and it has happened in the last 5 years.
I mean, there is no like EdTech unicorn in the US. There are like 5 in India.
और यहाँ 5 साल में हुआ है.
जो भी हुआ है.
तो अगर वो 5 साल में यहाँ तक पहुँच सकता है, so 5 साल में हम problem भी तो solve करेंगे. Next 5 years, hopefully you and I will be sitting like this someday and we will see those case studies or those models evolving.
So, I mean, let's put it in, black and white now. If I am an entrepreneur, right? If I want to start up in EdTech today, what is your advice to me? What should I be doing? What problem I should be solving? I know we have spoken about this throughout the podcast, but can you just lay it out for us?
So for me, the biggest problem to solve in India, and which I personally keep reflecting upon from time to time, is the inclusion problem. India is about mass. India is about large numbers. That's what is attracting large outside companies to India also. A foreign company comes to India because India has the numbers, the mass, the population, second largest country in terms of population in the world, right? If I have to solve a problem, first, it has to be which can address the masses. And obviously, when I'm addressing the masses, then you will solve for pedagogy, solve for the way of teaching, solve for the reach, but the first problem has to be that where you can get a larger share of the market and that to a very diverse market.
Got it. So you're saying that target the bottom of the pyramid in India, not the top of the pyramid.
हो गया, top में तो बहुत सारे
top में बहुत हो गया.
Oh, that's a crowded field.
Bottom में CAC भी कम होगा.
Absolutely.
And the impact also will be a lot more.
It's a tough one because the pedagogy, the technology will actually require a new level of thinking. So far, what happens is it's like bhed chal, as they call it, right? One successful and everybody wants to replicate. Even investors look at that and say, what is the most successful model? Can this be replicated?
Correct.
How many investors are willing to put money on a new model which has not been tested like this?
Got it. So first thing is that target bottom of the pyramid. Second, if I heard you correctly, was that focus on blended learning, not full online or full offline.
Yeah.
Blended.
Yeah.
Third is marry aspects of gamification
Absolutely.
to solve the motivation problem, some of the other problems. And anything else you like?
And fourth, again, every country thinks they are unique, and they are. I personally follow Indian history, the Indian way things work very, very, very passionately. As a society, we have a certain fabric, family bonds, etc., the way we work. How do you make sure that the Gurukul system, whatever we need to do from an education perspective, is done the way what works for India, and not just follow what works in globally. I mean, UPI worked for India. We didn't follow anybody in the world there. How do we develop those solutions
for the Indian market?
For the Indian market, for the Indian society, which caters to Indian parents, Indian kids. We are different. US is different. Europe is different. So be it.
Awesome. I mean, this has been very exciting. Any question that you wish I had asked you?
You covered all. But I would ask you one question.
Please,
Ulta. So you have seen the traditional education also, right? You come from a illustrious family of educationists, and you have dabbled in online also. You're running this thing. You have seen all the sides, right? And all the sides in their full glory. What's your view of online, physical? Where we started the discussion.
So my view is very, very simple. I don't think it matters whether education is online or offline. I think what matters is that how we are teaching. The pedagogy is what matters. Let me give you an example. We teach a course on accounting at Masters Union. We teach a course on accounting at LPU. Every university in the world teaches a course on accounting. Right? The problem is that it's a very boring course. Students hate coming to that accounting course. It's very hard for a professor to make that accounting course interesting. Maybe 1 or 2% professors do make it interesting. But 99% of accounting professors have it very hard, right? And for whatever reason, I don't know why, accounting classes are always at 8 a.m. in the morning. It's not the marketing classes at 8 a.m. in the morning. The accounting class is always at 8 a.m. in the morning anyways. An experiment we ran at Masters Union. We told all our students to run a cloud kitchen. Right? They basically rented some place, set up a cloud kitchen, and started selling on Swiggy. And this was an accounting class.
Interesting.
This was part of an accounting class. So basically, students had to maintain books of that cloud kitchen. They had to maintain the daily ledger. They had to maintain a monthly P&L. They had to even set up a balance sheet from scratch. Right? One business, 5 or 6 teams. Each team has a CFO, has a financial controller, etc. And all of them build separate books for that same business. They use softwares, they use all of that stuff, right? Now, what have we done here? We have basically gamified this entire accounting.
Giving them a real world experience.
Gamify this accounting course. And that accounting course has amongst the highest ratings and the highest attendance.
So what stops us from doing from any other university? I mean, it's
nothing. It was an experiment. We didn't think that we would pass in that experiment.
Why do you think universities don't do it?
Because as you said, the students are not asking for it, right?
Students are not asking for it.
I mean, I think you put it beautifully. In our case, we decided to sort of figure out a way to do everything differently. Right?
Your students didn't ask for it. You decided to do it differently.
No, our students did not ask for it. But the students were asking for it by not showing up for class at 8 a.m.
Boring hai, nahi aana.
Boring hai. So you have to listen to the customer.
Yeah.
They just don't know what they want, what is better.
So
you have to figure out. It's your responsibility. So when we did, our results are amazing. Right? And students actually learn how to, figure out those books.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't think any accounting course at the end of which students can actually set up their own books.
Interesting.
But here they do. They compete. I in fact get emails saying that the other team, उन्होंने कुछ घोटाला किया है, उनका क्लीन उनका बैलेंस नहीं होना चाहिए, उनका ये नहीं है, ऐसा नहीं है.
That's true real world. That's true real world. Yeah.
And it's like you guys are fighting over accounting books. Amazing. That's what you were trying to get at.
Perfect. That's great example. I think love it.
Awesome. Great question. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
I deeply appreciate and hope to see you soon again.
Thank you. Love doing this. All the best. Thank you very much.